Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Hit that like button because John Stolnis is here. All right, I know you don't like me. I don't really like McMullen, but you should like John Stolnis because he's a very likable guy from Bleeding Green Nation who put up a great
We
post.
went too long. John's got a hard out at 9. Sorry, John.
we will get John out on time. Here's what I want to start with you, John, because like I said, your post was very good. And you, like we did here, noted as well, the Jalen Hurts post-game comment about commitment and that they need to be more committed. He left it open for interpretation because they did follow up and they tried to get him to kind of redefine what he said. And I don't have a dictionary, which was kind of a flippant, silly answer if you ask me. And then you ran down 5 or 6 different things that he could have been referencing. But we're all just guessing here and reading between the lines to come up with some. So I'm going to try and follow up with you and tie you down. Understood. It could be any of those or it could be a portion of any of those. Which one do you think Kurtz was most relating to?
Well, before I answer that question, let me say this about, as I've thought about it over the last couple of days and trying to think about where his frame of mind was in that post-game press conference after having been sick all week. And obviously I don't think as the game went along, it looked like I don't know that he was the best option at quarterback as that game went along. I mean, he looked completely wiped out. And I wonder if in that news conference after the game that he didn't even really, not that he didn't know what he was saying when he used the word commitment or whatever, or what that might entail. But I think he was it seemed to me, maybe he was just kind of talking without any real sense of where he was going to end up with what he was saying. Like, I know he's usually very meticulous in his words and very careful with what he's going to say. And I don't know that he wasn't just so tired and exhausted and sick that he didn't really mean anything specific by saying commitment, that he just kind of said it. You know how it is when you're sick and you're tired or you're stressed out or whatever, and you just say something.
I'm with you. I think he took the nighttime NyQuil instead of the daytime. It was a little loopy. That's what I said to Jody. I didn't take it that seriously. I really didn't.
And you didn't go with the nighttime NyQuil excuse for Sirianni yesterday on we were trying to draw past interference. Come on, when in doubt, we're taking nighttime NyQuil. Come on, you got to be held accountable for what you say.
They bought the big package at Costco.
Yeah. Well, that's why that's right. Got a whole team size portion. I think I'm very interested to hear what he has to say now that he's had a couple of days to think about it. If he was as mentally sharp as he normally is when he made those comments and he was talking about commitment, then my best guess is that some of the players are not doing everything they need to do, all of the little things to be as successful as they have been. And I think part of that can be the mindset of you've got to 10-1 after you went to the Super Bowl the year before. You start to sniff yourself a little bit. You start to think you're maybe a little bit better than you are. So maybe you're not as into the team meetings as you normally are. Maybe you're not, running your routes exactly the way you need to be in order to create the proper spacing on the field and to put yourselves in the best position. Maybe you're not hustling as much as you can be in practice during the course of a week. I think that's more likely. I think what that would mean if I'm mentioning that, if I'm saying that in a news conference, that maybe the players we're relaxing a little bit, resting on their laurels a little bit. And after getting beat pretty bad by the 49ers and the Cowboys, it's hard to rev that back up once that intensity level drops a little bit. So I hope they're able to find it. If that's kind of what he meant, that would be the most logical explanation for me. But again, I'm not sure he really even knew what he was saying or what he meant to say during that news conference.
Yeah, I'm with you completely, John. And people take these things like they're gospel. I always say nobody's under oath. I just spent last week getting lied to the entire week by the head coach. I mean, if that doesn't identify they're not under oath, I don't know what does. And yet parse the part where and Nick Sirianni is a good thing. And you a good example of this again this week. And you brought up the explanation of the A.J. Brown play, which was just a terrible play by the quarterback.
Yeah.
And you called it, I believe your term was next level stupid, which I agree with. And that alone tells you, all right, a couple things. I think he misspoke, number one. I think he was trying to say, oh, we're trying to get a one-on-one, and you could possibly get a pass interference, but he did this misjointed jump, and that's his responsibility. He
Yeah.
can clarify it or he cannot. But I can say a lot of things about Nick Sirianni, and I've spent the week just destroying the guy because I
Mhm.
think he did a terrible job leading up to that Seattle game. I think he was purposefully coming up with the worst plan. He did a good job coming into that Seattle game. So I've been pretty hard on him this week. He's not that dumb. He's not
No.
throwing up plays to draw pass interferences. But
Yeah.
I everybody, because of what he said and the misjointed way, not everybody, but the way he said it, they're saying, "Oh, this guy's trying to draw a pass interference." I don't believe that. Am I wrong?
I thought he was covering for the quarterback, and I thought he did it in an inarticulate way. I think he did it in a way that makes them both look stupid because
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really believes that Nick Sirianni had Jalen Hurts throw a ball that was what, a 10%, 5% catch percentage at best, and clearly a 0% catch percentage in reality when it got intercepted, and it just didn't match the game script. It didn't match the moment. Any as down as people might be on Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni, they had to know that they needed 15 yards and had 2 timeouts in which to get it. So that play doesn't benefit you at all. Like the difference between, like, what does getting to, I don't even remember where the interception took place, but I think it was
At the
inside
20,
the
it would
30.
have been, yeah, it would have been like at the 20 best
So maybe
case
you
scenario.
maybe you
Yeah.
give yourself a shot to get it into the end zone and win the game. But that
maybe,
is still
maybe not, because there's
But
only
maybe
like
not.
6
They're probably
seconds
like
left.
6 seconds.
Yeah.
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 So
So I mean,
probably
so
not.
to just the cost benefit there makes no sense
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I think that was on Hurts. I think he just I don't think he was sharp on
No.
Monday night.
No,
I
he
think
wasn't.
I think the illness really was part of the problem with him, and he's been uneven all year. I mean, this is not just a one game thing, but Hurts is smarter than that. Hurts knows better than that. He's usually more game savvy than that, and it just I think Sirianni was trying to cover for the quarterback, but he knows that there's no real explanation for throwing that football in that spot and fumbled it.
All right, so I need your take, John and John, both of you guys, on percentage of truthfulness and believability when Nick Sirianni said yesterday there won't be wholesale changes to the defense. There'll be differences, but not wholesale changes. Was he lying? Was he stupid? Was he kidding? How are we determining what we're to take out of Sirianni's statement yesterday about the defense and the fact that Matt Patricia's now calling the plays?
I mean, I think it's I think it's notable that he's at least admitting that. I mean, even does Desai still have the defensive coordinator title? I mean, I think I don't think they've
He's
stripped
got
that
the
of
title.
him,
No.
which is just again
They
insulting
might have
to
a
everyone's
ceremony to
intelligence.
strip it, or strip
Right.
it off his.
Right, they're going to take the C off of the jersey, the DC off of Desai's Eagles polo or whatever. I think it's hard to put into words what it is they're thinking and how they've carried this out. Like last week, you could have gone in and you could have handled this maturely last week. And Sirianni, I don't know if he's so obsessed with this competitive advantage over other teams or whatever. I mean, that's the tagline that they use whenever they do something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't know if they were really doing that or if it was fumbled. I don't know. Again, I still don't think we know for sure that this was Sirianni's decision. He says it was. So okay, but like you guys said, he lies in his news conferences when he thinks he has a competitive advantage or when it's going to benefit the team. So I didn't see a whole lot really different with the defense on Monday night. I think they were playing a quarterback that for 3.5 quarters stunk. And then they figured out, hey, we have DK Metcalf on our team and he could probably beat James Bradbury on a regular basis. Yeah. I mean, they did some things different. Some guys played more snaps than they had. Some guys' roles were a little bit different. But at the end of the day, it comes down to that front four being able to get pressure. And if they're not, you can move all those linebackers and safeties and corners around and all that as much as you want to. It's not going to have a whole lot of difference. And so I mean, I think they're just kind of moving deck chairs with that defense right now. Yeah. And it's they're grasping at straws.
Yeah, I think Sean Desai would have called the exact same defense on both of those 3rd and 10s. That's exactly what they do on 3rd and 10. I don't think anything changed. And even I was with you, John. My first watch, I was like, well, they're changing some personnel things. But even if you think about that, well, Slay's not playing, so
Yeah.
Ringo's got to play, and they got Ricks involved as well. And both of those guys held up pretty well. I think that was one of the bright spots of the game. Um, People got excited. They saw Patrick Johnson. He's playing off-ball linebacker. He's playing off-ball linebacker because Shaq Leonard can't play off-ball linebacker.
Yeah.
They used a lot of three safeties. Same thing. They
Mhm.
have no other linebacker, so
Yeah.
they don't trust if Christian Ellis was here, but that's another conversation. So even the personnel changes, if you peel the onion back, it wasn't. They had to play the corners. They
Yeah.
had to. And they don't trust in Shaq Leonard yet. I don't know if they'll ever get to that point or if there's anything left. So, and that brings up the larger question of why, because I haven't talked to you about it. So I have to ask you why. Look, I'm not trying to defend Sean Desai. This defense was underachieving,
Mhm.
but I brought this up with Jody and I want to get your thought about it. If you had those 3 games, because he got fired on 3 games, if those 3 games don't happen, and I'm talking about Buffalo, San Francisco, and Dallas, and
Yeah.
think about that. San Francisco, the best offense in football. We're arguing about MVP candidates. They have more than one MVP candidate. That tells you how good they are. Buffalo, I think, has the most difficult player to deal with in the entire NFL, Josh
Mhm.
Allen. Dallas scores 40 points a game at home. 40 points a game at home. Those are good teams. If those 3 games were like spread out, week 3, week 7, week 12, same numbers, same performance, I think Sean Desai is still here. You believe that? And overall, why? Why? Why make the decision? It strikes me as panic.
Yeah, it definitely was panic. And at the time, I said, well, sometimes you're right to panic. Sometimes you need, sometimes panic is warranted. And I do agree with you, though. If these losses had been spread out, it might have been a little bit different. I mean, heck, if these last 3 losses in a row that the Eagles have had were spread out during the course of a season, we wouldn't be freaking out about it. But whenever things start to snowball, that's when you start to make decisions on people, on processes, on anything else. And things are starting to snowball. And it's December when things are starting to snowball. Like if you have this 3-game losing streak in October, you're not panicking like this because you still have plenty of time to figure things out. Well, you're running out of time to figure things out. And you only have so many buttons that you can push in order to try and get the ship right. So I agree with you. I don't think Desai's out if this happens in October. I don't think he's out if these things are separated by a few different weeks. I mean, the Eagles, if they're sitting here with the record that they have at 10-4 with these losses spread out a little bit, there's not going to be a whole lot of panic. There might be some concern on some way some games have gone and the way they performed against some of the better teams, but you're not surreptitiously firing your defensive coordinator, not firing your defensive coordinator in the middle of a week after coming off those 2 straight losses. And I just the thing that bothers me even maybe more than the play on the field was that this club culture, the Eagles culture was supposed to be one of the best in the NFL. The locker room was supposed to be one of the best in the NFL with all of these leaders, with a CEO head coach that knows what he's doing, with these offensive coordinators who are learning on the job but had been getting the job done so far. And they allowed these 2 losses to the 49ers and the Cowboys to completely upset the apple cart, to completely throw the entire locker room and the culture of this team into chaos. That to me is worrisome. Because I thought there were more adults in the room than there seemed to be over the course of this last week. I mean, you have Hurts talking about commitment. You have this mess with the defensive coordinator. Fletcher Cox last week was talking about we need to find out who our guys are. There were reports of finger pointing after these 2 games. Like you allowed these 2 really bad losses to completely throw everything into upheaval like that. That's not what I thought this team was. That's not the foundation I thought that this team had. And that's what, as much as anything as we're talking about with the defense, with the front 4 not being able to get pressure, all these big money guys you have not getting the job done, the response to it is as concerning as anything else.
All right. I'll let you in advance second guess the new defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Yeah, I disagree with John about the whole Patrick Johnson thing. He got a handful of snaps, whether it was at linebacker or a fifth edge guy, fifth guy on the line. The guy who got the extra snaps with Shaq Leonard not playing more than 50 was Sidney Brown. They went with an extra DB rather than an extra linebacker. A linebacker off the field went DB because he played as many snaps as he did. Ringo played as many as did. Ricks played as many as he did. And Bradbury played the whole entire game. How about this week? Bradbury got his lunch eaten again this week. He's been terrible after being all pro last year. Do you go even further? Because Sidney Brown had a terrible game. Awful tackling. Awful. Do you give him that many more snaps off that? Do you put the rookies who both played well? Neither one gave up a completion. Either Ricks or Ringo. Do you put even more on their plate this week and back off Bradbury? Would you think about setting Bradbury this week against the Giants?
I probably wouldn't sit Bradbury. If Darius Slay is in the lineup, I might do that. I think he at least gives you a veteran presence out there. I think you can certainly stop having him play man in some of these key situations on these 3rd and 10s and isolating Bradbury on the field in different spots. I think schematically you can hopefully hide a little bit of the fact that Bradbury's speed is gone and that he's not able to keep up with some of these guys. I would certainly, and thankfully against the Giants, their skill position players are far below anything the Eagles have had to face over the last month and a half. So that should help. I mean, it's Bradbury is clearly not the same player that he was a year ago, but I don't think you can take him out of the lineup. I think you need him in there. I think turning over the secondary to Ringo and Ricks both would be a little bit troublesome. I guess the argument could be made that if you're going to do that, this is the week to do it against an offense that doesn't have a whole lot on the outside. But I would still probably keep Bradbury in there in the hopes of trying to get him right ahead of the playoffs and figure out what kind of defenses you can call with a diminished Bradbury out there once the bell rings for the postseason.
Yeah, boy, if you asked me to give you my most positive spin on that game, I would start with Ringo. I thought he held up really well. But boy, yeah, I'm not ready to make that move. And even Ricks, getting him out of the slot, he was a disaster in the slot, but he's not a slot cornerback. It's not his fault. He's a big 6'2", rangy. He doesn't have short area quickness. And even he played well. I think that showed you his long-term upside. But boy, man, you're 10-4. I get it. You lost 3 in a row, but the world is not over. You're still going to be playing in January. I got to get Bradbury right, or at least get him some confidence back. I don't know. I mean, he's been playing so long. I don't think that's that big of an issue. Sometimes you say, all right, he had a bad game. He's not having a good year. But you mentioned the schedule. It's Giants, Arizona, Giants. There's a chance to give some struggling players, get them back on path. I think that's got to be the guys you got to lean on. And Bradbury's one of them. Disappointing season, but I can't pull the plug on James Bradbury.
And James Bradbury is not the only high-priced defensive player who's not getting the job done right now. And I think we're not talking nearly enough about how the defensive line is where all the and this is where all the money is. And this is where you've spent all that first-round draft capital. Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are not affecting the game enough, especially late in the game and on third downs. Earlier in the season, Hassan Reddick was the closer in a couple of these different situations, but just from snap to snap, they're not giving you enough either guy. Brandon Graham's not giving you enough, and that's understandable. He's in his mid-30s at this point. But you need Josh Sweat, you need Hassan Reddick to be beasts. Jalen Carter had a great couple of reps in that game, but for large stretches of that game, you didn't hear his name called. Jordan Davis has kind of been there, but again, not making an impact. And so this defensive line, this defense was designed around that front four, these 8 players that they rotate through, getting consistent pressure on the quarterback. And it was really disconcerting in that final drive when you knew that Locke had to drop back and throw each and every time. They didn't come close to sacking him. And it's not like he was doing quick screens and 5-yard drop-offs. He's got like 15, 20 air yards on these different passes. And so That if they can't fix that, it really doesn't matter what you've got going on with James Bradbury or the linebackers or the safeties. The defense is going to give up a ton of points. And then you better hope the offense is scoring 30+ points a game.
All right. Very simple question for you here, Johnny S. 3 words. Quez Watkins, why?
Boy, if we knew the answer to that question, we could cure a lot of problems, right? I struggle to figure out some of the personnel usage, especially with Quez. I mean, OZ, every time he has been targeted, it seems, comes up with a play.
Yeah.
He's not a superstar, but he's so solid. Like, he's dependable. And if I don't understand why he's not your number 3 getting all of the number 3 reps. Why are we still trying to make Quez Watkins a thing? I don't.
Not only that, he doubled down on Quez again.
I know.
Which, by the way, all the things that happen, no, I shouldn't say. You can't lead off with Quez Watkins, though.
No,
all the things that happen.
Well, and here's the thing: if you want to support your player publicly, that's fine. But on Sunday, if you want to just kind of limit him to 2 snaps, 3 snaps a game while continuing to say, hey, we like Quez, we want to give him that's fine. I don't need Nick Sirianni to smash the guy in the post-game press conference.
Well, and he can't. I don't even understand people who expect, he tries to protect everybody, which is understandable. I mean, that part is understandable.
But let your actions dictate what you actually feel. So stop dialing that play up. Stop putting him out there in big spots, because there was another play in the game too, if you watch the all 22, where Quez is just supposed to run a clear out. He's just supposed to fly up the field to open something up underneath for Devontae Smith and just kind of jogging. Like, what are we doing here? So Quez Watkins, why? Great question.
Yeah.
And only one, I wanted your answer, John, but there's another guy I'd really rather hear from. But all he's going to do is say, "Oh, Quiz's speed makes other guys open," except it doesn't. Yeah, it hasn't changed. All right, and can I follow up with a quick one, John?
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni, stubborn. Question mark.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's like he said at his news conference this week too, that, basically we've been running the same offense for 3 years, and it's been successful for us. What's the problem? You've been running the same offense for 3 years. Like, you can't do that in the NFL. You can't. These guys are too smart. You can't just run the same 3 plays, the same 3 formations with the same guys over and over again, especially when your quarterback is clearly not the same runner that he was a year ago. I was watching some Jalen Hurts highlights from 2022 this week, a game against the Packers when the Eagles ran for like 300 yards. It's a different quarterback running the football. You can't look at video from last year of Jalen Hurts running and Jalen Hurts running this year and not see it. Like, he is slower. He is not cutting the way he did last year. He is not dynamic with the football. And if you're still trying to run the Jalen Hurts is a dynamic runner offense with a Jalen Hurts who, whether it be injury or just losing some speed or whatever it might be, you're just going to run into a brick wall now that defense is caught up.
Wasn't he better against Seattle?
I thought it was the best he was all year running the football. It was kind of strange.
It was better.
It's still not like he was before, though, I think is what John was trying to say.
He can't get to the outside.
Yeah.
That is the big difference with Jalen Hurts. If you give him a lane up the middle, he can take that. But when you look at some of the cutback runs that he made last year, where he's cutting to the outside and he's getting around tacklers onto the sideline, he's not doing that this year. That aspect of his game is completely gone, and I think that affects what they do with their game is so heavy on RPO. It affects everything they do in the passing game and in the running game.
Now, at John Stolnis, I know you got to go. So, last one from me, Bleeding Green Nation. Make sure you read John there. Tremendous podcast on the Eagles and the Phillies. Don't forget the Phillies. I can tell you what Nick would say. The evolution of the offense is sort of encompassed in that. You're always making tweaks. You're always doing this. That's what he'll say. But it does look, I am going to put more on Jalen Hurts than Nick Sirianni. And I'll tell this why. And we'll go back to the A.J. Brown. Look, that's the first read. The read was high to low. The guy with the cornerback was 12 yards off. He should know what the line of scrimmage. You know what? This probably, you take a look at it, but that's not going to be there. And then you go back to the second read. And if Devontae Smith gets the football and makes a big play, and Jake's Elliott, everybody's happy, and all of a sudden the offense is clicking. I do think it's got more to do with the regression of the quarterback over the past 3 games than the regression of Nick Sirianni's offense. I say players when things are good, and I say players when things are bad. Am I wrong for that?
See, here's the thing. It's not any one thing. And not everybody's right and everybody's wrong with this. It is scheme, it is stubbornness from Sirianni, and it is regression from Jalen Hurts. It is other players also not performing. The offensive line has not played as well this year, missing assignments, not blocking properly. With regard to Hurts, I think the decision-making these last few weeks certainly has regressed. I think all year he's been careless with the football, certainly more careless than he was a year ago. I don't know if that's because of injury or if it's because of the new offensive coordinators working out some of the kinks there. Certainly, I think they miss Shane Steichen tremendously, but Hurts is not performing as well this year. And there could be any number of explanations as to why that is. And I don't know exactly why Hurts is. I mean, I think even in the Dallas and San Francisco game, the defense was so bad, it overshadowed Jalen Hurts. So I think played okay. Some turnovers aside, he played pretty well in those games. The Seattle game was just bad. And you wonder how much of that was the sickness and some of the decisions that he made there. But there's also Hurts was doing a lot of hero ball, and he has been doing a lot of hero ball these last few weeks. That is reminiscent of Carson Wentz after the ACL tear. But there are too many people calling him Carson Wentz now and ready to bail on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And please, everybody, you can criticize Jalen Hurts and the decision making and talk about regression and all of that without at the same time calling him Carson Wentz. Writing him off for 2024 and beyond. You know, it's just there's got to be some level-headedness when we're talking about the quarterback. In
Much
this team.
more.
We're just missing it.
He does not have Carson Wentz's mindset. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
even though, according to both John and John here, he went to the nighttime NyQuil and said something foolish.
that is not a report. That was just a joke.
Okay, yeah, just double checking. Last thing for me, if we assume that a heavy mention of his name is not a good thing, will Tyler Steen be mentioned significantly after the game on Sunday?
I hope so in a positive way that he came through and provided some good pass protection and run support. I'm thinking they're going to play Jack Driscoll and Sua Opeta on the offensive line. That's kind of my scary thought, just because they'll want the veteran presence on the defensive line. Yeah. And I think Driscoll's better at guard than he is at tackle for sure. So I don't think that would be a terrible decision necessarily. But I really want to see the young. Steen is like just a monster. I would love to see him get in there and see what he can do.
The NFL has a way, man. Yeah, right when you're having offensive line injury issues, here comes Wink Martindale. He's going to blitz from the buses, man.
Smart.
And
Smart
I think
move.
Tyler Steen is going to have to deal with it. I think they're going to play him this week. We'll find out on Sunday. We found out plenty over the last 40 minutes with John Stolnis on the show with us. You know, we love having you on, brother. We will certainly be getting you on again when we get closer to the playoffs. Thanks, pal.
Sounds good, guys. Anytime. You bet.
Bleeding Green Nation and Eye on the Enemy podcast. We've got John Stolnis here with us on Birds 365. All right, quick timeout. Come back. We still got plenty of show to go, including Scott Grayson from Fox 29. Going to join next hour here on Birds 365.